Well, Rachel Reeves will have no choice but to raise taxes in her autumn budget if economic forecasts deteriorate, according to the Institute for Fiscal Studies. And the left-leaning think tank, the Resolution Foundation, was even more damning in its analysis of her spring statement and its impact on the country's poorest. Our economics correspondent, Helia Ebrahimi, is here to explain. Helia.
Well, listen, Kathy, let's start with what Gary was talking about, tariffs, because they have such an outsized impact on the UK economy and the Chancellor's books. This morning, I spoke to the head of the fiscal watchdog, Richard Hughes, who had penned yesterday's spring statement, and I asked him about the impact of tariffs and President Trump's announcement on the auto industry. Let's have a listen in.
Yeah, cars make up about 10% of overall UK exports. This is a crystallization of a risk that we highlighted in our forecast. And we think, if more generally Trump put 25% tariffs on all UK goods imports and all imports from the rest of the world, that could have a material effect on our forecast. It could reduce output by 1% next year and about 0.75% in the medium term, and also wipe out the Chancellor's headroom.
Kathy, it's not just Rachel Reeves' headroom that's under pressure, it's her whole suite of policies that's been challenged today. Here's some analysis from the Resolution Foundation, who looked at tax and benefit policies set out for this Parliament across 20 different income spectrums, from the poorest on the left all the way to the richest. Everything above that dotted white line is a gain, but everything below is a loss. And when you see the line animate on, Kathy, you can see that actually most of those losses are concentrated at the poorer end of the income spectrum. Now, that is not very progressive and will make for some uncomfortable reading for Labour MPs.
And we've had poverty figures, of course. How has that shaped this argument?
Well, listen, the figures are from last year, so they're not to do with this Labour government, but they illustrate how difficult a picture it is, because there are 4.5 million children in poverty in the UK. That's up 100,000 on last year, a record number, actually. One charity banded it as a national shame. Now, the impact assessment that we saw yesterday on the welfare cuts announced by Rachel Reeves said that another 50,000 children would be pushed into poverty because of those cuts. Now, that is going to be particularly galling, given in the Blair-Brown years, one of their crowning achievements was to take 700,000 children out of poverty.
Helia, thanks very much for joining us. Aisha now in Leeds.
Thanks, Kathy. Now, Rachel Reeves has been defending her plans amidst intense criticism over the impact they may have in pushing people into poverty. But how worried is she about the impact of President Trump's tariffs? Our correspondent Andy Davis caught up with the Chancellor as she visited a house-building site in Cardiff this morning.
Why is it when, as you put it yesterday, the world is changing, the burden of that has to fall on the most vulnerable shoulders? Have you paused to wonder at all whether you're doing the right thing here?
In the budget last year, I increased taxes by £40 billion on the wealthiest, with the changes to the non-dom rules, VAT on private schools, changes in inheritance tax and increasing capital gains tax, as well as the increase on national insurance that businesses pay. Yesterday, I set out reforms to the welfare system, including £1 billion to help people get back into work. I'm confident that these reforms will help people get jobs, lift them out of poverty and have fulfilling jobs and careers.
You say you want to lift people out of poverty, but the Resolution Foundation has crunched the numbers. You will have seen this, and they've said that millions of lower income families will actually be £500 a year worse off as a result of these changes.
Well, the assessments are all being done on the premise that no one will actually go back into work. But the whole point of this £1 billion package, and learning from what governments have done in the past, is that we want to move people from benefits into work.
You're cutting money from 3 million families and pushing an extra 250,000 into relative poverty. Are you really going to give a big tax cut to the likes of Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg and Jeff Bezos after that, by cutting the digital services tax? Because that's under discussion, isn't it?
I'm not. I don't accept the numbers about what's going to happen in terms of poverty, because that assumes that no one will move into work.
Okay, but on the digital services tax, are you really going to give them a big tax break?
On the digital services tax and tax in general are decisions for the UK government, not for any other government to decide. And I believe that companies should pay taxes in the countries in which they operate, which is why we have the digital.
So you're not going to change it?
Tax. Taxes change all the time, but that principle and making sure that digital companies pay taxes in Britain is a principle this government believes in, and is something that we will stick with.
Because if you were to give his biggest and richest supporters a big tax break, then it's just to keep on Donald Trump's good side, then you are effectively voluntarily giving dinner money to the school bully the moment he steps into the playground, aren't you?
Well, at the moment, we are in intense negotiations to try and secure an economic agreement with our single biggest trading partner, the United States.
Is this a lever you could use?
What we're looking at is tariffs that we charge and tariffs that they put on our imports into the US.
Are you ruling out reciprocal tariffs? The Lib Dems were calling today for tariffs on Teslas coming into the UK.
I want tariffs to come down, not to go up, and I don't think a trade war is good for anyone, which is why the UK is in intense negotiations with the US.
So no tariffs on Teslas?
Look, we are in those discussions at the moment to try and reduce tariffs, not increase them.
Donald Trump is levying taxes on British products, costing British jobs, making us poorer. Isn't there a point where we have to stand up for ourselves like the Canadians are doing?
Well, we're in negotiations at the moment, and in those negotiations, we're standing up for the British interest. The best possible outcome would be to see no tariffs increase between countries. We are working hard.
But what's the stick you're using to wave at Donald Trump?
I'm not going to negotiate on Channel 4 News. We'll negotiate with the Americans, and those talks are reaching a crucial point in the next few days. I'm determined to get a good deal for Britain, because it is in our national interest to help British companies exporting around the world, including to the US, our biggest single trading partner.